Do you like making shaped cards? In this video, I share a quick and easy way to make them. Hello there, Michelle Shorts here with Terrific Tags with Michelle. Today I'm sharing a quick and easy way to make a tag shaped card using the Gracious Peonies set. So let's get started. This is the Gracious Peonies stamp set, absolutely beautiful with that large image. There are also some stencils that you can use to colour in the image, and then also the coordinating die. So I'm taking the image from the Gracious Peonies stamp set and I'm going to stamp that down onto some classic Crest 110 solar white cardstock. I'm using the Misty here to pick that stamp up, and then I'm going to ink it up with permanent black ink. This is a great ink to use with lots of different mediums, and it's not going to smear or anything like that when I add the ink blending on top. So I'm just stamping that down onto the cardstock. It did stamp really nicely the first time, but I am going to double stamp it just so that I get a really nice dark crisp impression. So just making sure to ink that up really well, and then I can stamp that down. And I think this image is just so beautiful, and it's a really great size for both A2 cards as well as larger cards as well. So I'm then taking the stencils, and inside there is a guide of where you need to place the stencils down. There is a kind of fifth stencil which I'm not using today, which does add detail onto the images, but that is the card that I made for the release, and I didn't use that last stencil and I really like how it turned out, so I thought I would just do the same thing. But do know that there is an extra stencil that you can add more detail onto the ink blending. I've taped my stencil down using some satin masking tape to keep it in place, and then I'm using a small ink blending tool to add ink on top. I thought that because I used pinks for my release card, I would go in a completely different direction and use the Sweet Dreams inks for this one here. Obviously peonies don't come in aqua teal tones, but I really love how it turned out, so I'm really glad that I decided to make the jump and do some aqua flowers today. Let me know in the comments if you stick to the colours that the flowers would usually be in nature, or you change it up. I usually try and stick to the colours that would be in nature, except for blue for some reason. I absolutely love blue flowers, so I do that quite often, but otherwise I try and sort of stick to the colour combination that they come in. But like I said, I really love how this turned out. I originally thought that I might use all 4 shades of the Sweet Dreams collection, but in the end I actually just used the 3 lightest. I do find though that sometimes with the ink blending, as the ink dries, it does lighten slightly. So sometimes it's always quite nice to go a little bit darker than you think you might need. So I've got my second stencil here, and I'm trying to focus most of the colour on these peonies at the bottom of the petals, or where it would be in the kind of centre of the flower, and kind of sort of fade up almost to white at the edges. So then I can remove that satin masking tape. That can be reused multiple times, and it's really good because you can clean it off if you get any ink on it as well. So then I'm going to finish off the petals here with the last stencil. And again, I'm just using those same 3 shades of the Sweet Dreams inks. They're just so pretty. I love these aqua tones. Just finishing off with that darkest shade, and then I can remove that stencil. And then for the image, I'm just going to finish off by adding the green for the leaves. This is the Green Valley collection, and I'm just using the 3 lightest shades. I really love these greens. They're quite vibrant in shade, but I thought that they would work nicely with the aquas. And again, I'm just using the 3 lightest shades in this collection. And then the best part of any stenciling, you get to remove the stencil and see what's underneath. And like I said, I just think it looks so pretty, those colours together. I'm then taking the Gracious Peony die. I'm holding that down with some low tack tape, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. I'm then going to work on my sentiments. So I've got the Versitile Greetings Die Set. This is such a great set with lots of different sentiments in it. And you have the word and also this shadow as well. So I'm going to cut the shadow from Vellum Translucent Paper. And then for the word itself, I'm going to cut that from black cardstock. I'm adding some double-sided adhesive sheet onto the back of the black cardstock before I run that through my die cutting machine. That's going to make it so that essentially I'm creating kind of like my own sticker, so that the adhesive is already on the back of the die cut. So I've run those through my die cutting machine, and then I've also cut an additional 2 of the black cardstock with the Hugs word itself, so that I can stack those one on top of each other to give me some dimension onto my sentiment. And that is the great thing about having that adhesive on the back already, is that you can literally just kind of lift them off and place them on top of each other rather than sort of having to add glue on the back. Although this isn't a particularly intricate die, so the glue necessarily wouldn't kind of ooze out, but it is still quite helpful to do it. So I'm just using my tweezers here just to remove that from the negative portion. But for the one at the bottom, I am keeping that in the negative just to make sure that I try and line them all up nicely on top of each other. So just taking my time to line those up, and then I can pop that out of the negative. I'm then going to add that onto the vellum shadow. And although this double-sided adhesive is really sticky, you do have a little time to kind of move it about. I've then got an A2 size white card base here. So this is a finished size of 4¼ inches by 5½ inches, but I want to create a tag shaped card. Now I have done this in the past by literally cutting a tag and making it into a card, but I wanted this one to be a little bit bigger. So I'm just making some marks on the card base here. It doesn't really matter the dimensions or anything like that. I'm just kind of eyeballing it as long as I have one side done to start with. So that line there is where I want to cut off. So I've placed it in my guillotine here, and I'm just going to cut that piece off. I'm then going to take that piece that I've cut off, and I'm going to use it as a guide of where I want to cut the other side so that it's going to be equal. That means that I don't have to do any measuring or anything like that to make sure that it's equal. I learned this trick from my friend Karen, and is really helpful if you want to make tags of any size. So I'm just drawing a line there so that I know where I want to cut, and then I can just cut that off, and then I can remove any pencil marks with an eraser. In this instance, I'm not going to add a hole in the middle so that I can actually make it as a tag, but if you did just want to make a large tag, you could do that. I've then got my image here, and I'm just kind of placing it down so that I can see where I want to have it in at the end. But I want to add a little bit of ink blending just behind where the image is, just so that the card base isn't completely stark white, and it just adds a little bit of extra interest. So I'm just using the residual ink on that ink blending tool. There isn't really much left on it. It does end up being quite pale. You can't see it that well in the video or in the finished pictures, but in real life it just adds that little bit extra interest onto the card. I've then added some instant dimension foam tape onto the back of the image, and then I can place that down onto the card. I don't want to have foam tape on either side, so I've not added it on each side because I know that it's going to overlap the card. It did really pain me to do so, but I ended up cutting off the two sides. I really love having things hanging over the edge, but it is always a little bit tricky to fit in an envelope. So I cut those down with scissors, and then I'm just adding some liquid glue onto the back of the Hugs word here. I'm then adding a small amount of liquid glue onto the back of the Hugs word, making sure that it's not going to be seen through the vellum. And then I can place that down onto the card. Just trying to line it up as best as possible before I press that down. And then I'm going to finish off by adding some black enamel dots. And the great thing about adding the image down with foam tape is that I've got a little bit of space underneath where the sides are of the image, and so I can pop some of the dots behind. Obviously that's just a personal preference. I really like having some of the embellishments kind of tucked underneath, and if you did that with layers of cardstock you wouldn't be able to do that. So that's why it's quite nice sometimes to use the foam tape. So just placing a few down lightly to start with. Once I'm happy with the placement, I'm going to press those all down. And that is the card finished for today. Really quick and easy way to create a shaped card. This could be any shape, but because my series is Terrific Tags, I obviously did a tag shaped card today. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description bar on YouTube and also over on the Altenew blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hello crafters, Jen here. For more tips, techniques, tutorials, and to discover which paper crafting products are right for you, subscribe to Altenew's YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Thanks for watching.